Welcome to the top of the morning show with your girl TT from the D. Today is Marriage Monday. It is also the 1st of April. Can you believe we are in April? June is right around the corner. I promise you, everybody, June is right around the corner. I hope that Resurrection Sunday was amazing for you and your family, or you and your friend or friends. You and your wife, you and your husband. I hope it was amazing for you guys all together. There were a lot of couples out having a funky good old time with their significant others, their families and their friends, but then there was also couples that didn't really find the time to connect or reconnect as they celebrated the Resurrection Sunday or the holiday to some. What I realized is that marriage is a beautiful ride when you are with someone who is a like-minded person. It's difficult to be with a person that is the complete opposite of you or thinks exactly the same versus being equally yoked or unequally yoked. And so this morning topic, we're going to talk about honoring God in an unequally yoked marriage. Is that even possible? Is it possible? Think about it. If you are married, do you consider you and your wife, fellas, or you and your husband, ladies, equally yoked or unequally yoked? That's a rhetorical question because I wouldn't be able to know what you said because we are not sitting face to face. But I do want to share some information with you that might make you say, Now, I will share this. I read an article about a woman who understood prior to getting married that she was making a mistake because she knew that she was a believer and her future husband was a non-believer. And unfortunately, that's the case. You have women that will marry men who are not faith-based believers or believers in God. Yet those women compromise their spirituality. And what's so crazy is sometimes you run across a woman who will give up her identity, her spirituality, change it and shift it for a piece of a man. Someone who's going to change her last name but not change the way he do things. See, I believe it's true when they say that at some point you come into understanding. You start to recognize and respect your own feelings and emotions. Think about it. How do you honor God when you're with someone who doesn't even believe in God? Remember, Paul wrote this in the Bible. And you can go and find it yourself. 1 Corinthians 7:13 through 14. Chapter 7, verse 13 through 14. It should read, depending on the version of the Bible you have, if any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever, and he is consistently, read that again because I want to be accurate. If any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever, and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife. An unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise, your children will be unclean. But as it is, they are holy. Interesting. I believe that a lot of times when we're dating people, we see the red flags of the non-believers and we just go by. We're mesmerized by their character, who they are, what they have, what they don't have, where they live, where they don't live. Right? Each time a wife models godliness in 1 Peter 3:1-6 to her husband, that's another moment he's been influenced by the godliness inside his wife. And I know it can be difficult to accept when you are a believer that your husband or your wife is a non-believer. What happens when you have a child or children? Do you secretly pray? Or do you openly pray? Is prayer forbidden? Now, when we choose to live for God, we tend to change a lot. Unequally yoked? Listen, for some women, in spirituality, unbalanced marriages, it's difficult for them to understand how they even got there. So infatuated or in love with the fact of being married that they don't realize that they gave up something that was so important. And they realize also that they're not able to honor God because there will be no covenant because their husband is a non-believer. That husband can't lead. He can't provide the leadership in which the way God intended for man to lead. And I know some strong men that are non-believers. I know some strong women that are non-believers. But the men I know that are non-believers are married to believing women. And the non-believing women I know that are married to believing husbands. I know that might not make sense. We want to be loved so bad that we just ignore certain things that ends up tearing us apart. But what do you expect in an unequally yoked marriage? I don't know. I will say this. Spiritual health promotes marital wealth. A wife's spiritual maturity allows her to become a victorious woman. And it's nothing more beautiful than seeing a woman, a wife, encouraging her husband, motivating her husband. There's nothing more sexier than a husband, spiritual maturity, wavering to steady the boat of life as he encourages and motivates his wife. Because with all the stresses and things that go on in the world, we have enough difficulties, right? But lack of marriages or high rates of divorce or abused relationships are unhealthy. God's word needs to be living and breathing inside of all of our homes. we need to understand what it looks like to be equally and unequally yoked. When Paul said to not be unequally bound to another believer, I should say a non-believer, he was not saying don't associate with anyone who is not a Christian. He was saying don't be in relationships with non-believing Christians or non-believers. Now, some might argue with you about that. Yoking is a couple at the neck of an animal. The two remain the same. Marriage is the joining of a man and a woman, along with their incompatibilities, for one flesh union. You can find that over in Genesis 2:24. Biblically, yoking is associated with burden, heaviness, and captivity. Marriage is a partnership found on love and respect, laying down one's life and the profound mystery of God and the church. Now you can find that in Ephesians 5:32. Right? Do you believe that a person can be alive and their soul can be dead? Not in the flesh, but dead in sin. See, as the believer continues to grow and read the word and soak in the knowledge, their faith grows deep, wide. And you have to take a moment to pause for the cause. I don't know what it would be like to be married to someone who was not a believer. All I could foresee is, oh my God, it's going to be a struggle. That it would actually be a struggle. Because how can we be on one accord when we don't believe the same? That scripture, 3 cords are not easily broken, which we'll do a whole show on that. It's never even put together when you marry someone who does not believe like you. Think about it. It's not even put together. You ain't got to worry about it being easily broken, because it was never put together. It was never put together. And y'all know it. I remember when a friend of mine got married a couple years ago. Excuse my crunch. Eating some raw almonds this morning. So, I remember when a good friend of mine, I found out was getting married. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Now, when they told me about this person that she was getting ready to get married to, I'm like, And I'm asking, like, anybody meet them? And everybody's like, no. And they're like, it's happening kind of fast, too. Well, I knew it wasn't a case of, oh, maybe she's pregnant. That wasn't it. So they told me who the person was. And of course, you could find almost anything on social media if you really want to. Right? I went on, I'm looking at this page, I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at her. I'm looking at them together. I'm like, nah. I'm not sure what's going on with that. So, next thing I know, time rolled around real fast. They got married. They did not go to marriage counseling. Premarital counseling. Because that's a requirement from a believer's pastor, bishop, or preacher, priest, whatever, rabbi, whatever, right? In most cultures. This person didn't want to do that. This person said, nope, we're going to go get married at the courthouse. We don't need to do all that. And it's like, Why? Why would you not want to do that? Whatever. It's to each his own. And I remember when before me and Andre got married, or Swifty as you might know him, we talked about premarital counseling. And it was just like, I'm his second wife. I've never had a husband. I never was married before. My husband, and I'm like, he said when he got married the first time, they didn't go through no premarital counseling. So he felt like we ain't need it. I said, we need it. And I'm not getting married without it. I'm thinking like, so. And he was like, I'm not saying I won't do it. It's just like, I didn't have it the first time. You know what I'm saying? I'm like to myself, probably why your marriage didn't work out. Because I think you discover red flags. I think you see things or have the opportunity to see things. I had the pleasure of sitting in on a couple that was being counseled, learning. And at this time I was in school working on my counseling degree. And in that meeting, I knew like they're not equally yoked and they're going to have problems. And I'm like, oh, right? That's how I felt. And so when it was all over and said and done, I had asked their minister, like, don't they seem unequally yoked? And he was like, yeah, they have to discover that and find that out on their own. They're getting married very soon. And if they don't realize what the problem is, it's not for me to tell them. I said, well, how can you marry them? If they're not equally yoked. And that's when I kind of learned that people are going to be people. Equally yoked or not, people are going to be people. And if somebody tells you they're not good for you, spiritually they're dead or whatever, you love him, you love her, you're not about to listen to this person. You're going to go forth and just say we're going to work on it, or whatever your excuse would be, and you're going to move forward. But at the end of the day, you're not trying to appease man. You need to be appeasing God, who created marriage. And to be with someone that's unequally yoked, I believe is a big challenge. When you talk about marrying them. Now, dating somebody, I don't know. Did I stop back in the day when I was young, teenager, dating, and say, yo, are you a believer or not a believer? No, that wasn't my stilo. I didn't know nothing about that to the depths of which I know it now. But that wasn't a conversation. Like, do you go to church? Do you? That wasn't even that. What? We weren't doing that. Does a person need to be equally yoked for you to date them? I don't know. Does a person need to be equally yoked to you to marry them? I believe so. I can't imagine my husband being a non-believer. I am so grateful that my husband is a believer. I'm grateful. Because I've seen plenty of marriages with people that were unequally yoked, and it is disastrous. I know some people that are married right now, and they're unequally yoked, and I'm looking like, and they've been married for a long time, and I'm like, man, how? And you see the off balance sometimes openly because they don't make no bones about it. But you be looking like, how do y'all live like that? Like, I don't know. That's why I'm so grateful that my husband and I are equally yoked. We have to learn to put things in its proper perspective and stop second guessing ourselves. And really look and say, do I have what it takes? That's a rhetorical question, of course. think about your marriage. And if you are getting ready to get married, think about your future marriage. Is your marriage under a covenant? Do you believe? Do she believe? Do he believe? Do y'all believe? What about two non-believers? They shouldn't have no problem because they don't believe in anything or anybody, right? That's my thought. I don't know. But it's like, if you got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's a great mix, right? If you have a peanut butter sandwich, 2 slices of bread, peanut butter on the left side, peanut butter on the right side. It's just all peanut butter and bread. No distinctive difference. You have a jelly sandwich, jelly on the left side of the bread, jelly on the right side of the bread. You have a jelly sandwich. Nothing just stands out. This makes it different. It's just what it is. But it's something about having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the left side or the right side with jelly, the left side or the right side with peanut butter, and then putting it together. Different, yet equally yoked. Delicious when you add them together. Metaphorically speaking, I like my metaphors, right? I believe when people are getting ready to get married, it's some tough conversations. Like, some people, they don't have these conversations like, do you like children? That's a big important question. Do you want children? If you want children, how many do you want? Do you want to be a stay-at-home mom? Do you want to be a stay-at-home dad? Because some women are out here doing it real big, where the husband could be an entrepreneur, right? And vice versa. Husband out there doing it real big, the wife can be an entrepreneur, okay? But I'm always taken back when I meet people and they be like, they're married and they hit a brick wall because they didn't have a discussion that somebody wanted a child or children. And they fully pissed that you want to have a child or children. It's like, whoa, y'all didn't talk about this kind of stuff before? That's just like, are you a believer or non-believer? You ain't never talked about it, right? It's all good. You get married, okay? The believer wakes up on a Sunday and like, babe, want to go to church? And the non-believer like, what? Want to go to church? I don't do church. Uh-oh. So you understand how the domino effect can take place? And a lot of it stems from lack of communication. Not waiting till you're married or getting ready to get married because you know what'll happen. We'll just work through it because nobody wants to call off a wedding. Or we done spent too much money. We invested too much. Nobody cares. You're going to spend even more if you have to end up getting divorced. So take a moment to reflect and look at your marriage. If you're married, and look at your marriage. Foreseeing it if you're getting ready to get married. And the first thing I want you to find out or realize or understand or communicate about is, are you equally yoked? And if you're not equally yoked and you're successfully married, like you guys are good, there's no issues, kudos to you. But if you're equally yoked and you know it, and you feel yourself on the fence and you're struggling to stay in that marriage, I think it would be wise to seek counsel. Spiritual counseling would be great. Worldly counseling would be amazing. And together they'll be mind-blowing. I love marriages. Old and young. New and old. That's all I have for you. I know it's a heavy day. It's a beautiful Marriage Monday here in these parts. I hope that you'll join us Monday through Friday right here at 6 a.m. for the top of the morning show with your girl TT from the D. Until then, I'll see you soon.